But Zach, I'm ready to move on to topic number 2. And this topic obviously is going to be a big topic. Obviously, we talk about the crest to start when it comes to Shedeur Sanders. Now we're talking about the trade requests when it comes to Terry McLaurin. Him, Michael Parsons have requested trades. And Zach, the question is, what does the Terry McLaurin trade request mean for the Commanders' Super Bowl aspirations?
Well, I think this is just a prime example. This whole situation with Terry McLaurin, it's a prime example of why it is so hard to win in the NFL, because I'm trying to put myself in both people's shoes here. And when it comes to Terry McLaurin, this is a guy that's been with the Washington Commanders for a pretty long time now. He was drafted in 2018, way before Jaden Daniels got there, way before the new ownership and Josh Harris took over in Washington. And he had some really good years with some not so good quarterbacks and when he was just not in a great situation. Of course, he breaks out this past year, one of the best wide receivers in the league. And even though he's approaching the age of 30, I totally understand why he wants a big, new, juicy contract. But at the same time, the Washington Commanders, they're looking at it from a different perspective. Obviously, it could be risky giving a player of his age that money, especially for the long term. My worry about this from Washington's perspective is not that a deal isn't going to get done, right? We both know how important Terry McLaurin is to this team. This is a team with, right now, legitimate Super Bowl aspirations after getting to the NFC Championship game last year, seemingly out of nowhere, and they need Terry McLaurin if they want to do that. However, both of us have been following the NFL for a really long time, and we've seen situations like this where, okay, the player ends up signing pretty late, but that just kind of ruins the flow of the team's season. There are two examples that come to mind for me. They both happened last year. One was Brandon Ayuk in San Francisco. The other was Jamar Chase in Cincinnati. Both those guys were in similar situations, holding out, not practicing until very late in the offseason. And in Jamar Chase's case, I thought he had a great year, obviously, but I thought that dark cloud and some of the negative vibes that were around the Bengals translated to them missing the playoffs. And the same thing with Ayuk in San Francisco. In the beginning of last year, Brandon Ayuk did not look like the player we all expect and know him to be. And when you're the Washington Commanders, now the target is on your back. No one is going to take you lightly going into this season. Everyone knows how good you are, especially at the quarterback position. And my concern with Washington, too, is their defense. As great of a season as Washington had last year, this is a team that gave up over 50 points to Philadelphia in the NFC Championship game. And as great as Jaden Daniels is, I don't think it's sustainable to get into shootouts each and every week. The other point I want to bring up here, and I think I briefly hinted at this a couple shows ago, I do wonder if the Deebo Samuel addition affected the way Terry McLaurin is feeling right now. Because we have to remember, these are human beings playing this game. And the reason I bring up Deebo is because the Commanders general manager, Adam Peters, he came from San Francisco. He drafted Deebo Samuel. He was a big reason why Deebo ended up being a 49er and San Francisco ended up paying him. And now Washington trades for him, a move that we all thought was a pretty solid move. Washington needed an upgrade at wide receiver too, and they end up bringing Deebo Samuel in. But if you're Terry McLaurin, both of you and your number 2 wide receiver in Deebo are going into contract years this year, and these two guys are making the same amount of money. That doesn't make sense to me after watching the way both these guys played last year. So when you look at Terry McLaurin, I understand why he's a little bit upset here. And this is a tough situation for Washington to figure out. Ultimately, I do think they end up getting it done, but it's not ideal that Terry's out here requesting a trade. I don't think he's getting traded, but this is a team that had so much positive momentum going into the offseason. And now if you enter Washington Commanders camp, I'm sure we could ask our guy Blake Lewis about this. The number one storyline in Washington's camp right now is not, wow, we have a team that's really good that could get to the Super Bowl. It's, damn, when are we going to be able to figure this out with Terry McLaurin? And that's not something you want to focus on to be when you're entering such a crucial season. You're muted. Still can't hear you.
Zach, you can hear me?
You're good.
There we go. There we go. Mic check, technology check. With all due respect, okay, I got to give a shout out to Lake Lewis Jr. We probably should get him on soon with all this going on. But look, to answer the question, what does this mean for the team going forward in their championship aspirations? I think you made some good points. You don't really want this distraction going on. Right now, the Eagles are in your division. They just won a championship. They had brought the band back together. Not a lot of subtractions. Okay, they're coming back. They're rested. They went to party. They went to Cancun in celebration mode, and now you have this negative energy going on. You don't want that. So I do think it could affect this team as far as some of the examples that you brought up last year. However, I am a firm believer in Jaden Daniels, right? I'm a firm believer in him and his game. And look, this trade with Crest is different in so many ways, in the sense that you look at the Michael Parsons trade request. Michael wants to be the top guy, and obviously we set the market, and he should. He's one of the best players at his position, if not the best player at his position. One of the best pass rushers in the league, if not the best, right? So I can understand from his perspective why he wants to reset the market. With Terry McLaurin, it's more so about him securing his financial future. You mentioned his age. Obviously, there's a 30 club when it comes to wide receivers. The NFL tends to look at those type of wide receivers with caution. Even though we see some guys getting paid, we still look over there with caution. So I understand why Terry McLaurin would want the money, want a opportunity to cash out in arguably his last big contract that he can get. Debo Samuel is fresh off his worst season last year, so you would assume that Terry McLaurin will be your number one option for your number one wide receiver because he adds a different element to this Washington offense that makes it so much dynamic. Me personally, I get why the Commanders don't want to pay McLaurin over $30 million. I think they look at that like, okay, 30 years old, $30 million, even though 30 and 30, matches, maybe it doesn't match in football years, football longevity. And I understand that. But by the time this contract expires, Zach, what we know about the market, it always resets. The same process with the quarterbacks is the same thing with the wide receivers. Kirk Cousins got $84 million. Zach, we was watching football then. A lot of people was like, overpay. What are we doing? Vikings, okay, for $84 million, right? Now you look at the quarterback market right now. Tua got $212 million. Jordan Love, $220 million. Okay, so clearly the market goes up. So by the time McLaurin's contract is up, his money will be average money. So I do think that there's a level of understanding the wide receiver market and understanding that, look, Jaden Daniels, we should be all in. This is not only about investing in Terry McLaurin. It's about investing in Jaden Daniels because Jaden Daniels needs as much weaponry as possible to, at least have a golden opportunity to win a championship. It would make sense if Terry McLaurin is there. You don't want to subtract. Look, Zach, I like the Washington Commanders, and I do think presently constructed, considering Terry McLaurin is still on this team, that they have what it takes to knock out the Eagles. But when you look at that NFC Championship game, it didn't look like it. Even though they was in that game, it didn't look like they was on the same field or was supposed to be on the same field. The Eagles were tougher. They were more physical. Okay, and yeah, sure, the Commanders had the talent, but they were more physical. You don't want to subtract from the talent. You want to make sure you have all your guys so you can have a legitimate opportunity to beat the Eagles. And mind you, the game that they did win last year, it was a concussion for Jalen Hurts, and they were down in that game. So again, they're not there yet with the Eagles. And if you lose Terry McLaurin, I'm afraid you might not get there. So I do think it's imperative that they understand the wide receiver market. They invest in not only Terry McLaurin, but they invest in Jaden Daniels by signing Terry McLaurin to the money that he wants.
Right. There's no doubt that I could see the point like, okay, this is an overpay. But sometimes you have to overpay when you have that quarterback on a rookie deal. We've spoke about it so many times that is really the cheat code in the NFL. And look, I'm obviously a Jaden Daniels believer. I do think even if Washington has a poor season, they're going to be a playoff team. That's how high the ceiling is when you have a guy like Jaden Daniels on your squad. But the difference here is just making the playoffs for this team isn't good enough. After what they did last year, the expectation is going to be get back to the NFC Championship game at least if you want to live up to those expectations. And again, this is why it's just so hard to win in the NFL, because Washington was such a feel-good story last year. They came legitimately out of nowhere, winning games late. The Hail Mary against the Bears was unreal. But now they're the hunted, and they're going to have to figure this out and go with their best foot forward. And just to your point with the Eagles, like, it's crazy. I didn't even realize this. Washington, that was the only game in the regular season. That was their only win in the regular season over a playoff team. They got blown out by Baltimore. So there were a couple other examples that came to mind. They obviously lost to the Eagles on Thursday Night Football as well. So this team still has a lot to prove. And if they want to prove just how good they are, they're going to need McLaurin.
All right, Zach, before we move on, I got our guy Lee Jones in the building. I'm going to let Lee Jones in this last lap of this topic kind of give his brief thoughts on this before we move on to topic number 3. So let's get Lee Jones in here. Lee, how you feeling, my guy? Welcome back.
What's happening? What's up, Zach?
How we doing?
Doing well, brother. Doing well, man. I always enjoy getting on the show with you guys. Y'all got a great show. I was listening in, and both of you had great points about McLaurin. This is what I'll say. If he's not on the Commanders team, then what? You look at the receiving core that they have. They picked up Deebo Samuels. Deebo is not a great route runner, a physical. I see him, taking screen passes and trying to do what he did in San Francisco. But is that realistic at his age and with his health right now to last? McLaurin was second in the league in touchdowns last year, over 1,000 yards. His numbers show that he's a, top 10 receiver in the league, right? But to your point, Leel, it's not about his value in the league. It's his value to the Commanders, right? And the fact that he was Jaden Daniels' big play threat. He's someone that, spreads the field for the Commanders. It's crazy why they haven't paid this guy. And the thing that I, most are sort of upset about is similar to the Michael Parsons thing. Why do you lowball the guy? Look, 25 to 27 million for a wide receiver right now, you're being on the cheap. A guy with his production at least starts at 30 million a year, and you could get him for between 30 and 32. I think that's exactly where he goes, the sweet spot. His age, people bring that up, but he hasn't declined in production, so you really can't use the age thing with him. I just think the Commanders are being cheap for some reason, and I think it's going to hurt them in the regular season. So,
look, I'm in sales, and when it comes to, I got static. Y'all can hear me? Yeah, I'm in sales. So when it comes to us being in rooms with homeowners, when it comes to consultations, all right, I work at Badfitter. I'm going to plug myself in real quickly. I hit my line if you need your tub done in your bathroom, done, okay? DM me. But anyway, I work in sales, and sometimes you have to explain to the customer the value and the necessity to get the project done. Cheap is going to cost you more. Yep. So if you want to be cheap and you want to look at another company and you want to look at another idea and another route, that's on you. Sometimes you got to spend in order for you to enjoy your product. And in this case, you have to spend in order for your team to be together so Jaden Daniels can have his guy. So he can add that element to the offense because he's not always going to be featured in every single play. There were games where they ran a lot of RPOs. There was games where they got other guys involved. But when they needed that go ball, that go route up the sideline to expand the offense and make it a little bit more diverse, he was there. When his number was called, it was answered. So at the end of it all, I do think it makes sense for the Commanders to stop being cheap. Look, this is a good guy. Okay, he's not a diva. When have this dude, stop because he wasn't getting the ball? I haven't seen it. When have this dude complain about having Taylor Heineke? Okay, or Taylor Hennessy, okay, throwing him the ball. When did he complain about having all those bums throwing him the ball? He never complained. Instead, he gave you a 1,000-yard season with each of these quarterbacks. So, again, pay that man. And, Zach, real quickly before we move on, any idea of a potential trade that looms in your head? Let's say the Commanders are hell-bent on being cheap or hell-bent on letting Terry McLaurin go. Is there a team? Is there a trade proposal that you have in your mind?
Yeah, so for the record, I don't think he's being traded. I think we've already hit on it. He's just way too valuable for Washington to deal him right now. This is a team with legitimate Super Bowl aspirations, and we know they're not getting there. If they were to ever deal him, they should have done it before the draft so they could have used that draft pick to draft his replacement in the first round. Obviously, that didn't happen. So I don't think he's getting traded. If he were, though, the team that would make the most sense to me is the Patriots. I think this is a team with a glaring hole at wide receiver 1 right now. I think the Stephon Diggs is a solid move considering the position they were in. But at this point in his career, I don't think Diggs is some high-level number 1 wide receiver. And this is another team with a quarterback on a rookie deal that I think Terry McLaurin would obviously help him, Drake May, get a lot better. And when it comes to New England, I do feel they're kind of a trendy playoff pick right now, like a team that missed the playoffs last year that could somehow find their way to make it in this year. And as great as I think Drake May could be, as much respect as I have for Mike Vrabel, this is a team that won 3 games last year. I still don't think the roster is there yet to go that far, but obviously Terry McLaurin might change my opinion on that. That's how good of a player he is. So if he were to get traded, New England would be the team that makes the most sense for me.
Lee, what you think about the San Francisco Commanders? And what I mean by that is a hypothetical trade of Brandon Ayuk for Terry McLaurin. We all know the relationship with Ayuk and Daniels. They're best of friends. They played together, I believe, in college. So what would you say to that?
No, I like Brandon Ayuk. Physical, got a great catch radius, can get down the field, big play potential, coming off of an injury, though. And that's the thing that's the unknown about Brandon Ayuk. That to me, they have very similar qualities as receivers. I think Ayuk a little more physical after the catch, maybe give you a little more yak after the catch. But I think a straight up trade, that wouldn't be a bad thing. But really, why would the Commanders even want to even go there? I mean, you hit it. A great locker room guy, right? A guy that has done nothing but produce for you. You want those type of guys in your locker room. On the other end, Brandon Ayuk has complained for the last 2 years that he's been in San Francisco. He wants to get paid, and he wants more balls thrown to him. So I like the trade if you're just looking at talent for talent. I mean, they're very similar, but I like the trade. I like the trade for the Commanders if he's healthy. But I just don't see that being something that the Commanders do. You made a great point. If you don't have Terry McLaurin, you put that added pressure on Jaden Daniels to be special during the game. And special, more than you have to be, gets you hurt. And if you can't stretch the field and you don't have a playmaker outside, I mean, Michael Gallup, we don't know what he is. He's coming off the retired heat. Deebo Samuels never has been a great route running down the field. You're going to get Jaden Daniels hurt by trying to make too many plays with his legs. You just don't want that as a Commander. I like it skill for skill, but I don't like it as an overall trade for the Commander.